Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true.
Welcome to Night After Night, a podcast about 8 seasons in a row. I'm Lisa Fernandes, and
I'm Chris Jayawardena. Hello.
And we're here to review What Do You Do with a Drunken Sailor from Season 5 of Laverne and Shirley, directed by Joel Zwick and written by Chris Thompson and Gary H. Miller. We're going to have some facts about them later in the podcast. Here's what the episode is about. Laverne and Shirley are eagerly anticipating the arrival of Bobby, Shirley's closest brother. He's in town on shore leave, and it's the first time they've seen him in a very, very long time. The girls are called down to a pirate-themed bar to pick up Bobby and discover him passed out in the crow's nest. They soon learn he's been in town for 4 days and drinking himself into a stupor for that length of time. While Bobby is initially resentful to be found and dragged to the girl's apartment, he quickly makes up with Shirley, then robs her and heads back out to the bar. The girls run out to get him, but soon learn he's passed out in the men's room, just as his CO arrives to clear the bar out. Will the girls be able to rescue Bobby and convince him to face his demons head on? So what do you think of this episode?
Well, that was a very special episode of Laverne and Shirley.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a... I usually don't have a lot of problems with these sort of preachy, subject episodes. And as we get into the discussion of the writers, one of them kind of made it his thing. And, that's something he's done many times on sitcoms he's worked on before. I'll bring that up a little bit later. That said, the acting and directing this episode was incredibly good. It has a really strong finish, despite the fact it has some really strange tonal whiplash that we absolutely have to get into.
Yes, we do. We do, because we just whip pan from this really, really goofy comedy, a lot of physical comedy, the girls dueling each other, all that stuff with the boys coming in to use their shower right after Bobby and Missy's an alcoholic. The dramatic parts are very, very good. The dramatic parts of this episode are real, real good. The comedy bits are really, really good, but there is major back and forth tonal whiplash when we cross cut between the two themes about this episode, so to speak.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Ed Begley Jr. immensely in this episode. He did a real good job. He really holds up his end of the drama, and you can kind of see how he's going to become this big star in St. Elsewhere, which only happened, I think, like less than 4 years after this episode aired.
Something like that, yeah. It was at 83, I think, was when he popped on there. 83, 84.
Yep. And this episode aired around 1979. So he does a darn good job. Cindy and Penny really, really own their parts of this episode too. They combine the girls' utter silliness with the determination to let Bobby know they mean business. They absolutely let him know that they mean business. Mm-hmm. And probably the most lacerating part is when Shirley brings up their dad.
Yeah, those references to the parents in many ways, like, it cuts so deep. And in the fact that even for the bar they use the same set from or many of the same pieces from Buddy, Can You Spare a Father? Yeah. You realize Bobby's continuing the cycle. Yeah,
it's the same kind of stuff from that episode, only done through a much, much darker lens. Just the way she has to kind of admit that to herself, because she's daddy's little princess. Mm-hmm. And even the conclusion of that episode absolutely kept her fixed in that place. She is still daddy. She is still his princess. They still love each other, and there's this intense bond. So her criticizing him is incredible. It's a huge step for Shirley, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, to add on to that is, as you're saying, with all of the performances and the kind of the writing for these characters, there is a much greater sense of maturity. You can actually see them sort of embracing that. The show begins when they're, 18, 19, 20 years old, and now they're well into their 20s. This is years into this run of the show that this is when you're living on your own long enough to have had the time to think about kind of how full of shit your parents are.
Yep.
Because, Because I mean, I love my parents, and a lot of people out there love their folks, and etc. But at the same time, we all, as kids with parents, as people, we begin to learn that our origin has a certain degree of self-delusion, and we do our best to learn from that so we don't delude ourselves. Inevitably, at some point, having some amount of delusion ourselves, like we kind of use to get through the day, basically. And that enhanced awareness, I thought, was really, as you're saying, with Shirley and with Cindy's performance of it, it brings back the reminder that Cindy was a new Hollywood actor. Her plan was to do bigger, interesting, exciting, different movies. And just when she saw the opportunity to get this show, it just exploded,
Yep. She wanted to star in those big old Francis Ford Coppola type movies, She wanted to have a quote unquote serious acting career, which is why when Laverne and Shirley happened and it got big, it was kind of a double-edged sword for her, from what I understand, in a lot of ways. She's embraced it obviously since then, but yeah, because she had a whole different career planned for herself, and this kind of happened out of the blue. They didn't even know what a spinoff was when the two of them got offered the idea of spinning off the characters into a show. Mm-hmm. What happened was they were in their office together, Penny and Cindy, and they were writing something together. And Gary calls Penny, and he says to her, they want to spin the show off. And then she covers the mouthpiece, and she turns to Cindy, and she goes, they want to spin the show off. She goes, what do they mean spin the show off? And then Penny goes to the phone, what do you mean spin the show off? Neither of them knew what it was about. It was great.
Oh, man.
The way everything blends together is it's decent enough. We'll see more awkward usage of drama and comedy kind of ill layered together when we get deeper into the season, at least in my opinion. But for me, in general, this works, but they really needed to kind of smooth the transition of each scene. Yeah.
I think so, because the jump into the ludicrousness in the bar when they're trying to rescue Bobby from getting caught by his CO, that that is a complete 180 rather than the slow kind of buildup it almost kind of needs to be. And what I'm kind of curious about from the writing perspective of this is that, again, we'll get into this with the writers, but like, I wonder if there was one writer tackling the drama stuff, another person tackling the comedy stuff, and they sort of stitch these two rather independently crafted chunks together and just had to kind of go from there.
Yeah. Well, we know that the Laverne and Shirley's writer's room could sometimes be a sort of melting pot of ideas, of lines. Because I know certain lines were thrown in the pot even when you just have one writer credited. That's
right.
Yeah, so that's something that we have actually heard come out of the mouths of cast members. That's how they did it. And honestly, you can see how the show's trying to be something more serious here, but it's not letting the seriousness kind of bog down the goofy comedy in a way. And wait, I like this episode a lot, even though it's like one of those really crashingly obvious 80s don't drink PSAs. My generation got a lot of those PSAs in our 80s sitcoms. Family Ties, The Cosby Show, every Blossom, I think, that's the 90s, but every sitcom did a do not get drunk, do not get behind the wheel, do not do this to yourself or you will croak episode. So, and yet here this works a lot better because, it doesn't push it that far. It's not like a Bobby drove drunk and killed somebody, or Bobby harmed somebody. He lied, and he manipulated the situation, and he took his sister's money, and that is a much more realistic portrayal as to what perhaps a viewer would experience with an alcoholic.
Yeah, that was definitely what I appreciated, is how I think what also helps sell that is that there's no audience reaction during those dramatic scenes, to the point that like the audio is so completely stage audio, you hear the camera rolling during some of the final scenes.
Yeah, you pointed that out to me. When the first time we watched this together, you were like, wow, you can hear the camera grinding away. I don't know if that's because they reshot it without the audience, or the audience was that respectful of the dramatic moment. It's very possible that they were.
It's totally possible, yeah.
Yeah, because Laverne and Shirley audiences were very reactive in a good way and an interesting way.
Yeah, like the woohoo of her writing on the elephant.
Yeah. I was not thinking about the elephant riding. I was thinking about when we're going to be reviewing this episode soon, when Frank announces he wants to marry Edna in the wedding, and the audience goes, oh, and then they're all very excited, and we've seen like previous examples, like them being horrified by Carmine and Laverne in One Heck of a Note and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The audience cares about these characters. They cared about these characters. They wanted them to be happy. They wanted them to succeed. They wanted them to do better and to be safe. So when you have Laverne and Shirley standing there going, no, I have to draw a line. No, I have to say this. No, you can't hurt me. I won't let you hurt my best friend. And this is a wonderful example of Laverne putting her friendship with Shirley over her glands.
Yeah. It's a sailor. He's handsome. He's tall. All of that. Yeah.
Tall, blonde, her type.
Yeah.
Well, she says it multiple times that tall, blonde guys are her type, and usually sailors.
That's a good. Yeah. Usually sailors.
Yeah,
I'm sure she'll
sailors.
make it. Yeah. If someone has to do with a vehicle, I'm sure. Anyway, sorry. Back on track.
But she's been excited this whole time she's going to see Bobby. She's going to see Bobby. They're going to hang out together. They're going to cut loose. She's maybe going to make out with him. They don't explicitly say this. But perhaps she wants to make out with him because she's been attracted to him ever since he was first introduced in that narrative during Goose Papa. She's been really, really, really thrilled to see him, but all it takes is him treating Shirley like shit. That's all it takes. She's done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes for her to kick him out of the house. She kicks him out of the apartment. She doesn't want to see him anymore. That's how much Shirley means to her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a beautiful example of who she really is at heart.
Coming back to where we were saying about, this is the very special episode, the very, calling it preachy is, I think, perhaps a stretch too far, or a stretch too cynical, cynical, perhaps, I would say. However, the reason this episode, I think, works so well is that it's very character-based. It is based on who these characters are. It's based on their reality and their history, the references to the family, and realizing that this argument of you have a problem, you need to get help. This is probably them reenacting what happened with their parents. And, those aspects, for casual viewers, they're not going to always catch that sort of thing. But for those of us like us here on the show that are passionate about the show and going through this episode by episode, we catch this, and they're very appreciable spots. Yeah. And, I also feel that it really shows the range of Joel Zwick as a stage director and as a director of actors, that he is able to, as much as the tonal whiplash is pretty intense, he can do can manage and choreograph, help to choreograph the big physical comedy beats and have this really personal, heartbreaking, showstopper conversation scene. That's really just three people talking in a room and make it engaging. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how powerhouse the acting is in that scene. It's so good. It's really, 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 really. You got to give high compliments to everyone because, man, so good. It's so intense. The way all three of them attack the material, and the way Bobby tries to, crawl back under Shirley's skin and bring up all the little family references and all the little code phrases, and the Feeney family hi, the Feeney family goodbye. Which we were introduced to under much funnier circumstances in Who's Papa. It's really masterful. I mean, it's really masterful how they wove together little details from Who's Papa and brought it back together. Brought it back in. That's the best use of continuity on the show in a while.
It's very impressive, and I especially love the sort of telling, like, sort of symbolic reference of like the dance they do together, the ballerina thing, which A, is wonderfully done, completely adorable, and it makes me wonder. I did not look this up. Ed had to have had little sisters, I assume, or have had sisters that he had to do this kind of stuff with. And admittedly, he was a showbiz kid. His dad was a famous and respected and Oscar-winning actor as well. So, so probably quite possible. But what's interesting is that because of what happens, they fall out of step together. And I just love that sort of symbolic pun to it, that they're out of sync. And notice how even when she goes off to bed, she kind of looks back kind of suspiciously at him. That something's wrong. Which that's the moment you realize they're out of step.
Yep. Because she knows. Deep down, she knows something's wrong. Deep down, she doesn't want to admit to it because, as usual, Shirley is like, if I just mow right through it, if I just keep marching with a positive attitude, if I just shake off the disappointment and keep walking to the north, I will reach my goal. And, of course, that's how she treats her brother's addiction. Like it's something she can solve. Like it's something she can, live through. It's something that she can help him get through, either by ignoring it or by trying to positive thought it.
Right. Which I think carries over into Laverne's interjection into this situation. I found really interesting. Two reasons.
Yes.
The first was, I was surprised at how much she understood the problem of alcoholism. Now, admittedly, that, we don't know enough about her history that, the DeFazios is a wide family. This could have happened with someone else in the clan, in Clan DeFazio. And
Le Clan DeFazio, eh?
And could have had oh God, I'm doing the hand thing. Stop that. And
hey, how come you no use your Italian accent no more?
But what it made me kind of wonder as well is, I have a note here. Let me just scroll this down. It's, it's the typical cynic thing, because it's what it's what's sort of needed. And what's, because as we're saying, like, Shirley has this tendency to either completely overdo the fixing into the point of just building this, it's narrative building, or it's, the fantasy that she's trying to will into existence, or as we're saying, just ignore it and come up with her own explanation for it. And Laverne, for once, is able to directly cut through that, show her the truth. And Shirley is kind of maybe not forced to accept it. She wants to accept it. She's ready to accept it, which I think for this kind of an episode, the very special episode, it stood out for me. And I really appreciated seeing them go that route. But I was curious, like, what your take was, because when we were watching the episode, I was really in my head with that. I was curious what you thought about Laverne's reaction to what's happening.
I was going to bring that up because honestly, it felt like she had experienced it through an alcoholic boyfriend of something.
Oh, wow.
It felt like she experienced it either with a close friend or with a relative or with a boyfriend because, geez, she knew exactly what to say, what to do. And we obviously haven't seen any of that. Like, it's even possible you could say that maybe she's experienced some of it with this herself because we know that she's, gotten really drunk multiple times to the point of passing out in canon. Like, we know that's why Look for Your Leap happens.
Mm-hmm.
She wins a chug-a-lug contest, she passes out in a vat, and she wakes up in somebody else's underwear on her. So it's possible that she looked into all this stuff herself and said, hey, that's wrong, I shouldn't be doing this. But, we'll see her drink plenty later on in the show, so I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Which then also, that gets us into the Edna's presence as well, which is, very much the guide, sort of character. I'm starting to miss how they used to use Edna. I don't know if it's just that I'm noticing it more, but I feel like she's being used functionally more than as her own character here.
Yeah, that's a problem. That's something Betty Garrett was aware of. That's something Betty Garrett complained about, that they weren't using her correctly. They weren't making Edna enough of a character. And they weren't applying who she is to the narrative. Instead, they were just using her to stopgap things. You can compare this to, like, her in season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it's kind of just, yeah. You can see almost a lessening of how they treat her and how they use her. It's unfortunate.
I'm trying to think if there's any other sort of initial thoughts for this episode. It's an interesting mix. Like, I mean, you have... Yeah, and it's even interesting now that, again, you know, sort of this either symbols or sort of the references. The beginning with the champagne brunch, you know, with Cheerios, no less.
Yes.
And the, what is it? What was it? The Red Devil near champagne wine that you get at when you get your oil changed, and it comes in a gas can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, I love that you've got Frank like practically having to siphon it out.
Yeah.
But like that was, that was like, I don't know. It was just, there's a lot of like details like that. I felt was a better, almost satirical, biting sense of comedy about it. Cause it's the joke about the liquid breakfast. It's about the devil's brew, and those sort of elements. And, and then you jump into the insanity, later on. And it feels kind of, it is still unfortunately jarring, even though it has some really good actors. Some of the guest players we got to talk about are in that sequence and are really good at it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I said, it's the humor versus the drama here. The way both are applied, I still think works, even though it's a little bit uneven. But the way they manage to make these little biting bits of comedy and throw them in. You compare that to the way that Lenny and Squiggy are used in this episode, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. We'll get to that like when we bring up the hello gag part of the podcast after our we go over the talent that is used in this episode. Yeah.
So for today's talent for the episode, I have a ton of notes. Do you want in front of the camera or behind the camera notes?
Everything. Do it.
You want it? Okay. Which one do I want? I guess more specifically, which goes first? You want the front? You want the back? What do you want first?
Yeah, you go for it. Start with Zook and go northward.
Wait, does that mean go down to the bottom of the page and then go up? I'm like very confused.
That means start with the director and then end with the guest talent.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. So, I try whenever I do these episodes with a director who's been, oh my God. Okay. Joel Zwick, 17th episode for Laverne and Shirley is this one. He still has another 16 more to go for his run of the series. So we're smack dab in the middle of the run. I was able to this time to finally find a great interview with 3D Theatricals, which is it's a video you can find on YouTube. It's really a lot about his stage work. It's about theater, but there is a lot of questions about there are some questions about sitcoms and things like that. Yeah. It was kind of hard to transcribe, so I'm going to just kind of say he talks about the difference, and he was asked like, does it become technical compared to stage, which is very much about kind of getting the actors to a certain place and letting them run. Because, you have to deal with cameras and lights and all that. And he, paraphrasing, he said to the effect of, at some point it gets very technical, but the act of simply staging and getting a run through of a little 22-minute play with seasoned professionals just going after it, they're waiting. They don't want the producers coming in with, excuse me, can you get some better work? There's no time to be overindulged in the process. They get out there, they run the rehearsal, and then like they spend about 2 days working out blocking and camera blocking. So and to that end, he even said, and I bring this up because of the amount of staging that there is in this episode. You're not staging actors, he says. You're really staging sets. You're bringing actors to the point of the set that you can shoot around it. So the couch is always a shootable spot. The dining table, the kitchen counter. Yeah. You set up your ground plan so wherever the actors want to go, you can shoot them from there. And I'm very curious, like how this was applied to more elaborate sequences. Both from a dramatic, emotional point where. Yeah. Do you let the actors experiment, for instance, with the emotional part at the end? Let them run a little longer. Let them go this way. Let them go that way. And see what they do. Or do you sort of plant them where they are? Because that's the whole point of that. The beauty of that scene, the confrontation at the end is, you plant them in a position and because they're drawing their line, and the way that Laverne is, it comes into the middle and tells them off, those sort of elements. I'd be very curious about that. But anyway,
I want to know. I want to pick his brain directing wise.
Yeah,
I feel like that's an interesting place to be. And the fact that he does a lot of theatrical work, as we know. I think I must have brought this up that he directed David's daughter Natalie in a production. So yes, I must have brought that. Okay, so I won't bring it up again. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, we will not stop talking about that because that's a wonderful little factoid. And besides, we haven't seen any of his recent stuff yet, so we need to see what he's up to now. I think he had something. He was trying to get something together last year, and I know he's got a pilot that's was it Finding Fillion? I think is like something that's in circulation.
Yes. Yep.
But yeah, the 3D theatricals interview, I'm going to keep coming back to it a bunch. Highly recommend anyone out there go check it out. So for writers, this was a Chris Thompson and Gary H. Miller episode. So Chris Thompson, this because his final episode is coming up this year, I decided to do a little bit more digging. There's a little bit of backstory on Chris, which I think will be interesting. I got some kind of cool factoids, and I don't know to what extent this will sort of connect, but so Chris Thompson was doing improv performance at the Off the Wall Theater in LA. He was like in his early 20s. It sounds like around like 23, 24 years old. He gets approached by a producer. Now, he initially thought this was for an acting gig, and it actually turned out to be a producer that was working on developing Serrata's Court, which was a short-lived sitcom that eventually became Night Court in the 1980s. And that show, so Serrata's Court, it not only had Fred Willard at its main cast, but the one episode that I could find with Chris Thompson's name attached to it was co-written by none other than Judy Irving and Mart Sawkin.
No way! Huh! That's neat.
So
that's real neat.
Yeah. So now at this point, Thompson has only 2 more episodes left to go in his run of the series. So we'll try to be catching up with him a little bit. And as always, reminder, he was a creator of Bosom Buddies and later the Disney Channel show Shake It Up. That would also have Joel Zwick directing 41 episodes in the early 2010s.
Wow. No way. Oh my goodness. That's great. I had no idea that he did that many episodes for them. I know of that show because that was a big hit on Disney Channel. And yeah, there's a big Disney con. That's fun.
And the one last thing I want to mention about Serrata's Court, because it's probably going to be the only time we ever bring this show up. Episode 12 of its only season is not related to Chris Thompson, but there's another familiar name. The writing credits have story and teleplay that include Michael Kagan, Jordan Tabot. We may see their names. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. Yeah. But the third writer on that episode is Ida White.
No way. That's awesome.
Listen, hopefully by the time this episode has gone up, we'll have been a little more, we'll have gotten our courage up to talk to Carol a little more and say like, hey, Carol, you have any stories about this? Anyway.
Yeah. But we gotta do that.
Anyway, so Gary Miller or Gary H. Miller, so this is an interesting one to talk about. Despite having worked as a consultant in the writer's room since early season 4, this actually is his only credit as a writer on the show for a full script. Now that being said, he would go on to work on quite a few projects, including Bosom Buddies, again as a consultant writer, Give Me a Break as a story editor and writer, and even doing like a few episodes of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, including 3 credits for writing and 41 episodes he did exec producing. Now, Gary Miller did seem to have retired in around 2002, but as of this recording in May of 2021, he's very active on Twitter, speaking out for social justice and against racism in particular, which is interesting. So I mentioned before about this is kind of a thing. The pinned tweet as of this recording now was put up during when the protests, the BLM protests came up in 2020, where he referenced one of those Dean Cain sitcoms from the 90s that he had worked on, where he wrote an episode about race issues. It's called the race, the racism episode among fans. And I don't know if it's still up there at that point. Future me may put an edit that clarifies which one it is. It's a racism episode that's trying very hard, but Gary, you're going to probably be mad at me for this, but it's still clearly written by a white guy. Lisa and I are both persons of color. We can get away with saying that.
Yes, we can.
Anyway.
Dear. Oh, dear.
So-
At least he's trying. I gotta give him credit for trying at the very least.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But that's pretty cool. That being said, I mean, this dude is, has clearly, he cares a lot about people. He cares a lot about, he definitely wants to make good television. It sounds like he's one of the people that, like, with the shows he worked on, he did try to, like, bring something that was, socially conscious, which I give him a lot of credit for that. And I think for this episode, that really came out really well.
Yeah. Yeah. It really did. Honestly, this episode works better than it should. In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it works better than it should.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that brings us to actor notes. And so, of course, we have Ed Begley as Bobby Feeney.
Yes.
Ed Begley Jr., I should clarify. Not the guy who played Dr. Armitage and Dunwich Horror, but his kiddo.
Yes.
And look, we've talked about Ed before. I do more research on the show now, and I got some new nuggets to drop on you. All right, okay. Listen, according to IMDb, despite not being credited, Ed Begley Jr. was apparently an assistant camera operator on the 1970 cult classic Equinox.
That is delightful. I love that.
Anyone out there,
delightful.
look it up, kids, especially you Evil Dead fans out there.
Yes, you should.
But
I love that
since
factoid.
this will be his last appearance on the show as Bobby, which is very tragic. I love him as this character. I would have loved to have seen him be a regular or even be part of the main cast. But Ed went on to have an amazing career that is literally continuing to this day. I think he's got like 2 projects in development right now. As of now, he has apparently 330 acting credits on IMDb alone and still going. That's not even including any stage work he's done in the last like 50 years. So he would later go to work on with Laverne and Shirley alums on Private Lessons, Young Doctors in Love, and This is Spinal Tap. Though that was only in the 80s. I'll look further into it, but I value my sanity. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
So we also have a returning actor to bring up next. And Lisa, did you recognize a certain familiar face?
Actually, no, I did not.
So that was Lynne Marie Stewart as Barbara Tedesco.
That was her again. That was her again. Man, you put that woman in different outfits, and that's how she got away with being a character actress for so long.
Yeah.
You put her in different outfits, she's like a completely different person. This is how she got away with playing a nun in the Golden Girls and Miss Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah.
Amazingly talented woman.
So for those who don't remember, this is now her 5th of 7 appearances on the show, and the only time I believe that she plays the same character twice. We'll get back to that in just a second. But she was the day. Because she was also in Day with Eraserhead as one of Carmine's regulars. She was the uncredited wrestling coach in Tag Team Wrestling and Sister Sarah in Come All Ye Bums.
Yes.
She also would go on later to voice the cartoon version of Shirley Feeney on the Mork and Mindy, Laverne and Shirley Fonzie Hour cartoon series.
Yes.
And
that's in the
also,
second season. I want to insert that's in the second season after Cindy quit the show because of her lawsuit.
Ah, I see.
She quit the show because of her lawsuit against Gary Marshall and against the whole production company and ABC. And before then, she was voicing her own character. She was voicing Shirley. And Penny was voicing Laverne. So, yes, sorry I interrupted you. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No worries. No, it's okay. We're gonna eventually we'll come back to that. I know in the future. I know that despite this podcast supposedly quote unquote wrapping up in September of 2023, I know I'm probably gonna be on this for another year after that. But back to Lynne Marie Stewart. As also mentioned, she was brought in on Jumpin' Jack Flash, which I suspect was quite possibly when Penny Marshall was trying to rescue that movie from certain doom.
Yeah.
So the biggest kicker about this, though, the name Barbara Tedesco, and it is mentioned by name in the opening scene when Shirley gets the phone call. Yes. Barbara Tedesco is also the white bread Sandra Dee lookalike from High Neighbor Book 2.
Oh man, that's right.
So this is the reprisal of that character, which is interesting because they do not refer to that incident at all, but they call her a friend from high school, which makes me further confused.
Yeah. I'm presuming that it's that the characters are 2 different people because of Barbara Hummel. Barbara Hummel is the.
That's right. Okay, so it's called. So it must be miscredited on
IMDb.
On IMDb, then okay, because I believe they call her. I believe it's listed as Barbara Tedesco on the High Neighbor Book 2. But you're right, it is Barbara Hummel.
Yeah,
you're correct.
Barbara. I'm just to my Dave impression. Yeah. She's Barbara Hummel on the show. I don't know why that continues to be a credit on IMDb, but it is. Yeah. So.
The next one is so when they come into the bar and there's the boys and they're talking to this gal, I guess the character is called Frisco is her name. So it is a complete like walk-on throwaway character. That is apparently Julie Parrish from Return to Peyton Place, Good Morning World, and the OG Beverly Hills 90210.
You could have fooled me.
Apparently, yeah. Because I saw the picture on IMDb and when I watched the episode again, realized, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure that is indeed her from the looks of things. Yeah. So this is someone. The reason why I want to bring this up because sometimes some of these actors, there's like zero credits for us to like really dig into. Is not really much to go on, but. The cool thing about Julie Parrish is not just her start as a model. She got noticed by Jerry Lewis, thrown into a couple of his comedies in the early 60s. She's in, what is it? It's Only Money and Nutty Professor, right? Even after all of the TV, Good Morning World, Return to Peyton Place, guest spots across the 70s, Beverly Hills 9, she directed 3 TV movies, 2 of which are apparently uncredited. She did like these environmentalist documentaries in the late 80s. In the 1990s, up until the year 2000, she spent 9 years working as a staff counselor at the Haven Hills shelter for battered women and their children, which I think is really significantly cool. And I just wanted to make sure that, if you have the opportunity to mention the good things people did with their lives, it's always good to do that, especially trying to be there for people who have been in horrible, abusive situations.
Yes.
Sadly, Julie Parrish did pass away of ovarian cancer in 2003, but what a badass. So
yes, indeed. May she rest in peace.
And then, then the big one that everyone probably was waiting for us to bring up is Dennis Haysbert. yes, who's incredibly recognizable in this role with his voice. My mom didn't recognize him at first. I asked her if she recognized him, and she was like, "Is that Denzel Washington?" I was like, "Ma, no, he's too young. He would have been too young." And yeah. all I had to go was at Allstate, and then my mom just breathes out, "No shit."
Your mom's amazing.
But yeah, so Dennis here, he's not just the former president on the series of 24. He's not just the Allstate insurance guy. Here, he is the motherfucking Shoal Patrol motherfucker.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
So according to IMDb, this appearance on Laverne and Shirley is his 4th credit as an actor in television or film. So he was around 25 or 26 at this point based on his age, but he was well on his way toward a rollicking career. Now, talking about the depths of this guy's credits is a tad overkill because he's been in so much stuff, but I just wanted to point out my personal favorite role of his is, of course, in Michael Mann's Heat, and if that's not on brand for me, I don't know what the fuck is at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet you that's his favorite role of his, the part that he didn't It was going to be either that or 24, but 24, up and down quality. Up and down
my
quality.
dad was a fan of the show. I wasn't too into it.
Yeah. That was like a crapshoot whether or not you'd be really super into that or not, depending on how into the action you were. Yeah. He is a darn good actor. And he is immediately recognizable in this role. His talent is very evident. I love the way he reacts to the girls' ridiculous fight. The way he's trying desperately to get between them and stop them from fighting without having to physically get involved. Ladies, can't we talk about this? And no, they cannot. To bring us back into the story, I love that Laverne on the fly comes up with this whole story about how Shirley slept with her husband.
That's so Laverne.
Yes.
And as much as Shirley hates to admit it, that probably would be her too.
Yeah. It's very soap opera. They love the gossip. The girls love gossip in spite of themselves. Almost because, they've had extremely negative experiences with gossip. Extremely. But they continue to gossip and they continue to enjoy gossip. And there's going to be actually a whole episode once we get into the LA years, the Burbank years, in which they get involved with a tabloid reporter.
Oh, geez.
And they just mock the tabloids for taking aim at them.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's exciting. I'm so
Meta's coming. We have seen some doozies when it comes to gossip and articles that were published in tabloids around the time the show was airing. It's like really ridiculous stuff in a lot of ways. But what you gonna do?
You know, as on that at that note of like the certain element of like their kind of indulgence in the smuttiness and whatnot,
Yes.
I do love that moment at the start of Edna's scene where she's woken them up in the middle of the night to get the dimes thing. She's looking for money,
Yeah.
and with the can. And I love that Laverne was having an erotic dream, and Edna, when she realizes, was at the Heartbreak Hotel, and Edna's very sympathetic, which is very her and very cute.
Yes, that was adorable. I love that. A, Laverne has dreams about all of us, of course she would. And B, Edna knows what it's like to have a good dream interrupted. It's like, sorry about that. So you get to enjoy that, girl.
Yeah.
There's like a theme running throughout this season about Laverne's smutty dreams.
That's coming up in a couple episodes, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is indeed. I think this brings us to the boys' use in this episode, which is, God. I will say this is a clear case of them being the amyl nitrate twins, as David would say. You pop them, you have fun for a couple of seconds, and then they're gone.
Yeah, yep.
Because that's how they're used, kind of like as dressing to perk the episode up when you think it's getting a little bit too heavy. The sight of them standing there trying to be military men is hilarious, especially because Lynne could just put on his reserves uniform. If he really wanted to pick up action, he could just do that. And instead, he's a general.
Well,
with this little plastic fake helmet.
He's got to figure that generals get more poontang, which I don't know, man. I don't know.
He would know. Being on base, he would probably know and go, well, if he's a San Juan, I could probably get some. Just pretending to be him. I love Squiggy as Admiral Kangaroo. I love his hat. I love his determination to see if his hat is going to float in the toilet.
I forgot about that because it's like a little boat. Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh, that's delightful.
I love the two of them desperately trying to pick up the same waitress, and then her turning to the girls and literally saying that they should hold out for a roll of quarters. Wow.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wow.
I have a whoa as my note response to that.
That was my note too. I'm like, were the guys trying to pay her to get her to sleep with them? Was that what was happening?
Yeah, you gotta wonder.
Or would she just not do it with them unless they paid her? So
right.
Those are the questions that go through our minds when we watch a show. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I was just watching the interview with Cindy and Laverne. Sorry, Cindy and Penny. Sorry, ladies.
You sound like that horrible tabloid writer who refused to distinguish their
oh God, no, we're not bringing that up again. God no.
I hate that interview. But
I was gonna say is they have them. They're talking though about it's the one from like about I think it was like 12 years ago, and they're talking about how they weren't able to say whores, but they could say sluts, and then Penny has to interject whores. Which oh my God, makes me think of Blood for Dracula and Joe D'Alessandro. But
I miss that woman so much.
I know. So yeah. God. But that's what I'm wondering. Like, it's not like they could have called it a hua, but
well, as Penny once said, the girls regrew their hymens, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, with the scene with the boys, there's the two things I love. I especially love the Lenny and Laverne interaction here, just because the snappy dialogue and the timing Michael has for this is fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen Bobby around? Yeah, your house about a year ago.
And then she threatens to punch him, and the way he reacts whenever he thinks she's going to sock him is always funny.
Mm-hmm.
That happens multiple times in the season. It happens multiple times over the show. The way he goes, no. Please don't hit me. I know how hard you hit. It's like, and we know Laverne can punch, is all I gotta say. But I loved that specifically, and I really, 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 really loved the way he gives in and agrees to go in the bathroom to get Bobby, on her orders. Oh, military talk.
Yeah. It's get him out here, I'll kill you.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Oh, man.
My goodness.
It's so good.
And then they come in at the end of the end of the episode, and this is proof that the boys wash their hair.
Oh, yeah.
It's proof they wash their hair and they wash the bodies. And I love that Lenny refers to taking a shower as going through a pre-wash and a rinse cycle, like he's a car.
I did enjoy that. Thought that was very cute.
Something very charming about that.
I also love this revelation. They're growing tomatoes in their bathtub.
Yeah. There's always something in their tub. It's pudding. It's a garden. That's actually one of my favorite things that they ever do is grow tomatoes in the tub. And then they offer Laverne the cream of their harvest, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, that phrasing.
Yeah. They're really proud of it. They're really proud of their harvest. Oh.
So you mean to say that they were offering them the cream of the crop?
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Macho Man thinks this episode is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're up to like our pros, our likes, dislikes, pros,
Yes.
cons, but it's like we've kind of talked a lot of them out already, I think.
Yeah. But like in a way, I think the transition scenes could have been a little smoother. But the performances are boffo. A lot of the dialogue is really good. The choreography on the sword fight is like amazing. I don't know how they managed to rehearse that and get that done in a week because man, yeah, there's a lot of physical stuff that these women did. Where you watch the show and you go, "How did you live? How do you have intact knees?"
Because I mean, imagine, there's probably a few, passes where, they tumble down the stairs because they have to go down the stairs. They have to come out the side, they go out the door and then they show up on the door on the upper, landing and then come back down the stairs.
Yeah.
There's going to be, misses there. And then, Penny does this, the Tarzan swing and.
Yeah, that's some good stuff. Can you imagine though being Joel Zwick and having to choreograph all this and get all this done and try to get the drama nailed down all in 1 week? So imagine being
Mind you do remember what my shooting schedule was like for Downcast when I was
yeah. So you do know what it's like.
I do because it would.
Okay, what is it like? Tell our listeners what's it like doing that stuff. How does it feel?
So the thing that's interesting is because of the fact this was like a day job, and when I was making my first feature film, which I don't think is very good anymore, so I don't recommend anybody go look that up. Although maybe that's reverse psychology.
Yes,
but,
give us ad money. Give us ad money.
It's not monetized though.
Oh, I thought it was monetized. Oh, fine, forget it.
No, I
watch it for the joy of it.
But we were basically like having these times where we're shooting. Sometimes we could only just get even one day for a scene, basically, and we had like this 45-minute block to like get like one of the most emotional scenes out of the movie.
Yeah,
and then you would have to like the following day or 2 days later, we'd have to do a fight scene or an action sequence or something like that. Now it was. What it often was the battle, and I'm wondering if that's what it was with directing this much television, consecutively. You basically just cut your losses the best you can. And you sort of figure not everything's going to be great, but you figure out where to put your time so that you can win the audience back.
Yes.
And I wonder if that was, and I wondered to some extent whether that was how they scheduled like shooting this episode.
Yes.
As we were saying, it is quite possible they decided because of the nature of the topic that was being discussed that they actually came back to do the more kind of simpler dramatic stuff later. And maybe even have decided, let's go ahead and do a reshoot on another day to wrap it up, just to make sure we got it, because it's the one you can't screw up. And because sometimes that would happen for us on this. I mean, we're talking, this was, $7 to 10 grand little mini feature by a bunch of people who have no freaking clue what they're doing. Yeah. And and that's where you basically, there were many days where like, I would realize, well, crap, the scene that's at like minute 50 sucks. It's going to suck. It's going to be bad. We did not have the time for coverage. We didn't have time for the performances, whatever. It just fell apart. but then the scene that's going to be 2 scenes after that is going to work because we've already shot that a week ago.
Yeah.
And so you just sort of kind of have to see how each of them go.
Yeah.
And you hope you get better at it every single time.
Yes.
But anyway, I am, again, this is one of those reasons, as I think, to mirror what you were saying, Lisa, is to really get to pick Joel's brain about, like, A, how do you deal with that? And B, how do you recognize what needs to happen? Because there's an element of instinct, but there's also an element of learning, of observational learning.
Yeah. See, I have never directed anything. I've written many things, so my skill level is a different thing.
Poke, we should change that someday. Poke.
Yeah. That's actually a plan. Before I croak. Yes. Anyway. Yeah. I think we covered all of our negatives, all of our positives. I really like Dennis Haysbert. That's why I wanted to mention. He just, like I already mentioned that he owned the whole, his whole bit. Now everything was commanding when he projected it across the stage.
He commander in chiefed it.
Oh goodness. Yeah.
So
I did also want to mention one other thing that we managed not to mention the past few episodes. There is an entire scene in the opening credits now in which Carmine tries to bite a sandwich. He's at dinner with the girls, and all the fixings just come out the opposite end of the sandwich. There are many things. There are many problems I have with that shot. First of all, it's just the way it's blocked. Like, I really figured they just had like an AD just go run and get that stuff on off days. Yeah.
But additionally, Carmine, you're Italian. Have some fucking respect for how you eat your sandwich, man.
He doesn't care. He's hungry. So sure he has a big appetite.
I mean, he loses like everything. Like, all he's doing is he's just eating bread at that point.
I know.
It's like the chipmunk sneeze. It's so unsatisfying.
His meatballs have rolled onto his white pants of enjoyment of sandwiches. Oh, that was a Simpsons reference, sadly.
Okay.
Well, I know.
I'm sure if you were here in person, you would just be like, you would be laughing at the expression that just came across my face.
I believe it is literally delivered. No, wait, this is a Futurama. That was a Futurama reference. That was Mario in the segment where Fry has to kill the invading aliens by playing a video game.
I don't remember the reference to meatballs.
The meatballs have rolled onto our white pants of peace.
That's it. You're right.
Yes.
You're right.
Yep.
Got it. Snap. Okay. Man, I need to watch that episode again. I gotta dig up those DVDs because I hate watching it on Hulu because it's got freaking commercials on a show that was on Netflix for 7 years.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I've got the whole thing. I've got everything but Beast with a Billion Backs. Everything but
same
that.
Here, actually. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and don't have the Beast with Billion Backs for reasons.
Yeah, nobody likes that movie for a reason.
There's like maybe like 10 or 12 jokes out of the whole thing they're pretty good.
And the uncomfortable rape miasma that lingers over the entire proceeding.
Yep.
Yep.
Tentacles. Anyway, okay. We've already got an explicit episode, so that's all good. I think if we're getting this loopy and punchy, it's probably time to start working on a ranking.
I was gonna say it's not worth getting an explicit rating for non-sexy tentacles. Anyway. Yes, it's time for us to rank this episode. So what do you think?
It's hard. Because the thing is I have a suspicion this is gonna end up in my top 5 for the season.
Yeah.
But I'm going to probably rank this as low as like a 7.5, to be honest. I think the tonal whiplash really devastates it for me.
Yeah. I was actually about to rank it as 7.5 too because it just needs a little bit of smoothing out. I almost would put it at an 8, but it's not a good episode with some blemishes. It's got some significant blemishes on it. Still good, still well worth watching, incredible performances. But the lack of cohesion doesn't kind of works against it. It kind of complicates everything in a way. But if you want a good Very special sitcom episode. You can't go wrong with this one. Direction's great. Writing's great. Performances are incredible. This is top notch. Also, I wish the boys had kind of been better integrated into the plot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
that's the other.
Yeah. Go, sorry.
Well, exactly, because as we were saying, they were just sort of brought in as like this, you know, it's like, oh, everybody's having trouble having fun with the show. Here's the goofiness. Yeah. I mean, did you watch the promo for this episode that's on the DVD?
Yes. Yeah.
It sells it as a romp. Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Those, by the way, are syndication promos that were attached to the show's syndication package versus commercials that ABC aired. So this is how they sold the show in syndication to try and convince people to keep watching the next episode. Can you imagine that? Do you imagine being just paintbrush slapped with the seriousness of this episode, thinking you're going to be watching a funny romp? Because, man, oh boy. That is incredibly weird the way they marketed it to the syndication market. I'm actually very curious to see the promo for Why Did the Fireman at the end of the season, because that is a very, very serious episode. And if they marketed that as funny, that's awkward. Super awkward, because that was basically Penny's attempt to get an Emmy in a lot of ways.
Oh boy.
In a lot of ways, that's an Emmy episode for her and probably for Phil Foster.
Dang.
But we'll get there.
Yeah. Okay, so 7.5, and I'm just trying to think if there is anything else. I guess does that cover us for today? I
wanted to mention that the whole subplot where poor Barbara accidentally used Nair for cream rinse, and Laverne thinks that her hair is fake, and she's jealous. She's very jealous of the idea of Bobby sleeping with anybody that's not her, which is interesting in of itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I wanted to... Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, there are lots of great character moments like that in this episode, for sure.
Yes. And Laverne wanted to get a tattoo of an L on her boob.
Mm-hmm. No. She wanted, it was on her ring finger for $5.
Yeah, on her ring finger, right, Frank?
Unless ring finger is a euphemism that I'm not aware of. I mean, I did see a French movie called that was called Ring Finger with Olga Kurylenko, and this is very erotic. Yeah. But that's a whole other discussion. Anyway.
Anyway. We'll get back there eventually. S. Yeah. I think that's it for this episode, I think.
All right. Well, I guess that covers it for now. We got a little off topic, a little odd and punchy about this. But I think that's the catch. As we're saying, this is the catch with that episode. Fittingly, we got really serious, and then we got super goofy, and now we have to be like, oh, right, we're being serious about serious, terrible things.
Yes.
I mean, speaking anecdotally, I mean, my mother has terrible alcoholism in her family. I mean, she was the only member of her siblings that did not have a problem with drinking at any point in her life. Wow. And so she has, dealt with it. Her father dealt with it. Her mother dealt with it to some degree. I mean, her mother had a whole bunch of other issues, but that is not for pod. And that's was the thing that was interesting, for instance, to see how this, I was a little worried actually in some respects to see how she was going to react to this episode, because, it's, if it was going to be, especially given Shirley is very much like her, but she handled it pretty well, and she really appreciated it. And she said, I have a category in my notes called Mom Notes now. She did say it was good, and it was handling an important topic. Let's see here. It was a good, my mother is one of those people that really likes art when it's socially conscious. She wants to believe that art can change the world for the better. Mm-hmm. And it can get a little flustering sometimes, but that said, this felt like, because of the quality of it, you could see people, especially young people, watch this episode, and hopefully know that there is a way to get help.
Yeah.
Addiction is terrible. We have known people with it. We have had, and many people like myself, even, we have our flirtations with elements of addictive personality or addictions of a sort. You know, it could be used as a coping mechanism. It could be used for any number of things. And it's good to see at least that they tried to be respectful about it. And I give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. Like I said, for a very special episode, it not only manages to be funny, but it also manages to really treat alcoholism as a serious topic. And it encourages the audience that they're not alone. It's possible to get out of this. And if you're hurting your family, it's really, really important to get treated. And yeah. Joe did an excellent job.
Indeed. Yeah. So I guess that's it for today then, yeah?
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, everybody out there, for listening or watching or whatever have you. Maybe you're possibly, I don't know, you are, I mean, who knows? Maybe you're just getting this in pill form. It's being slowly digested by your stomach and getting into your brain. That way it's breaking the blood-brain barrier. And a quick shout out to all of our patrons out there. We love you dearly, and we hope that you're having a wonderful day and enjoying the early access for this episode. And if you would like to know more about Night After Night or about what we are up to in the Laverne and Shirley fandom and this little corner of the internets, you can find us at Night After Night Pod on Facebook, Tumblr, WordPress, Patreon, YouTube, Tumblr. Do we have like a Vine? Do we have we're never doing TikTok though, right? We've agreed not to
TikTok. No,
God no. And if you would like to get us more directly in communication, we are most actively at Twitter at NightAftNightPC, and you can find us there. There's a bunch of different cool bunches of stuff. And I think that's it for all of our socials and how to get in touch. But anyway. This season's been pretty good so far, but I don't know. It's kind of pushing me a bit, Lisa. I don't know. What is next?
Squeaky pushes Lenny out of a window. You've pushed me too far.
My God, and I thought I was getting pushed around. So wait, you mean the next episode we're just gonna segue this into the first season of Game of Thrones?
Yes, this is Laverne and Shirley's Red Wedding. No, wait, that's Mummy's Bride. No, wait, even more. That's probably short on time. Probably. We'll get there. Eventually.
I will say, actually, having seen a few skims of Mummy's Bride, because I needed to get a clip of that for the Laverne and Shirley, our first Laverne and Shirley said compilation video. Yeah, calling that the Red Wedding is pretty accurate.
The fandom hates it for a lot of reasons, and we'll get there eventually. We will definitely get there eventually.
Oh, goodness. Anyway, so thanks again, everybody, and hope you'll join us next time for You Push Me Too Far. Have a great one.
Beware the pirates, kids. Bye-bye.
Me and you